Good afternoon, and welcome to a joint session of the Fresno City Council and the Fresno County Board of Supervisors. We'll start out with the invocation by Supervisor Sal Quintero.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome to all. Even myself, it feels like deja vu all over again. But I'm happy to be here and proud to sit with all of you and look forward to today's meeting. I'd like to read the prayer, if I might, that was written by our Chief of Staff, Mr. Steve Rapata, and he presented this prayer also to the Board of Supervisors. And I think it really fits well for what we're doing today. This is from Proverbs 11:14. Where there is no guidance, a people fall, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Lord, leadership is hard to define. Please let this board be the ones to define it with justice. Leadership is like a handful of water. Lord, let our leaders be the people to share it with those who thirst. Leadership is not about watching and correcting. Lord, let these members remember that it is about listening and connecting. Leadership is not about telling people what to do. We ask, Lord, to let this leadership be the ones to find out what people want and need. Lord, we ask you to guide these leaders and those under their charge to understand what leadership is, less about the love of power and more about the power of love. Lord, as this board continues to undertake the role of leaders, let them be affirmed by the servant leadership we witness in your Son Jesus. Let them walk in the path he has set, and let those who will follow. Let our greatest passion be in the county and city of Fresno, and let it be compassion. Our greatest strength, love. Our greatest victory, the reward of peace. In leading, let us never fail to follow. In loving, let us never fail. Lord, we praise you to the highest, and we pray that to you in the name of your Son, Jesus, and all of God's people said, amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. City Clerk, would you call the roll call?
For the City Council, I'm going to call the roll. President Olivier. Vice President Soria. Council members Oliver Baines. Steve Brandow.
here.
Gary Bredefeld.
Here.
Paul Capriolio. Luis Chavez. Would you like to call the roll for the county? Thank you.
Chairman Pacheco,
Here.
Vice Chairman Quintero, Supervisor Borges, Supervisor Magzik,
Here.
Supervisor Mendez. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to first thank Chair Brian Pacheco for talking to me, returning my calls back about December about the possibility of a joint meeting between the county and the city. And I also want to thank Supervisor Mendez, who joined a subcommittee. I believe we met our first time a couple months ago. And it's members Mendez and Pacheco from the Board of Supervisors, myself, President Olivier, Council Member Soria, Council Member Capriolio. I got that. And we've really, the first meeting, we made progress. We changed things that haven't been talked about or have been talked about for years. So the goal was to have at least two joint public meetings with the two groups to discuss so many things that are all in common for us, and the beneficiary will always be the citizens of Fresno. So all the staff are out in the city side here and the county side there, the county council, the clerk, and the CAO, city manager. And I'm going to start with introductions. I'm going to defer to our guest, the Fresno County Board of Supervisors, and to Chair Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, it's been a long time coming. On behalf of the county, we're very pleased to be here. Again, I want to extend my appreciation for the mayor and all of our city council colleagues for their hospitality and just the camaraderie of working together over the last several months to make this happen today. While we already had roll call, I still think it's appropriate. It's a historic event. Would like to reintroduce my board and our staff that's here today. So to my left is our Vice Chairman, Sal Quintero. To the right again, Supervisor Andres Borges. Next to him is Supervisor Buddy Mendez. And on the very corner over there is Supervisor Nathan Magsig. In addition, for our side today, I have our County Administrative Officer in the front, Mr. Gene Rousseau, our County Counsel, Mr. Dan Cedarboard, and our clerk that keeps us all herded together, Bernice Seidel. So again, we're very happy to be here today. Believe it's the best interest of all of our citizens and look forward to a very productive meeting today.
Thank you. Council President Olivier.
Thank you, Mayor Brand, and thank you to Chairman Pacheco and all the members of the County Board of Supervisors. Welcome to the big show. We're happy to have you here. Hey, you guys might even get some media coverage today. So we're very happy to have you here. And I can introduce my colleagues as well, representing the 1st District. To your left from the gallery is Esmeralda Soria. 2nd District, Steve Brandow. 3rd District, Oliver Baines. The 4th District, over here on the right side, is Paul Capriolio. 5th District, Luis Chavez. And then representing the 6th District is Councilmember Gary Bredefeld. And it's an honor to have all of you here participating in this meeting, and we're looking forward to a good dialogue. So thank you to all who helped make this possible. Mayor?
Thank you. And I want to say one thing before I forget. The press release that went out, I believe, a few days ago was extremely important because what it had, I've never seen, it had the logo of the city of Fresno and the logo of Fresno County on the same document, really symbolizing this joint cooperation, this unprecedented cooperation to really make a big difference in both the county and the city. And on today's rules, this is our first one, we're going to limit public testimony to 15 minutes per topic. And these are discussion only, they're not action items. So I'm going to start in this for everybody here. We have buttons you can punch up that I can read here, and I'll kind of go on a first come, first served basis. So the first item is the emergency coordination, public safety. Does Chairman Pacheco or Councilman Olivier want to start this? Well, this is an item we discussed in one of our monthly meetings, and this is going back 20 years to the original talks about consolidation, of efficiencies. We're not talking about consolidations. We're talking about those things we can do to make our both public safety, the Fresno County Sheriff's and the Fresno Police Department, much more efficient. So these were identified as the low-hanging fruit. So communications, we've spent literally millions of dollars. There's one with the city, there's one with the county, CHP, Clovis, and the city of Fresno is in the process of upgrading its communication system. So I would like, and I think the county would like, that one day over the next so many years that we all coordinate together, Fresno County, City of Fresno, Clovis, and CHP, all local law enforcement, to have the same system, that we can communicate better, we can be more efficient as public safety. So anybody, that'll be my take.
And I would just add to that, Mayor, as we discussed, not only for efficiency, but for our safety. We believe it'd be a faster response time for our law enforcement, as well as the safety for the men and women on patrol, is one of the reasons we had been discussing this issue, and look forward to some sort of coordination in the future for the benefit of everyone.
And also in the audience, we have Deputy Fresno County Captain Gallardi. I said that right? So if you want to come up, either one, and say a few words about this, you're welcome to. Andy?
Well, good afternoon. Again, my name is Deputy Chief Andy Hall. I oversee the Fresno Police Department's, all of our special units, our SWAT team, our bomb squad, our K-9, our horses, any special units pretty much under my command, including the communications center. I think I'd first like to start out by saying that our cooperation and communication with the Fresno Sheriff's Department, our brothers and sisters over there, has always been excellent. We find them to be an outstanding agency to work with in every operation that I've been involved with them. They're a professional organization, and their communication has been top-notch. They've never held back information, and we've always provided any information we have. With that said, we still have 5 policing districts in the city of Fresno. Each one has its own channel operator. We have a traffic channel, which has its own operator and its own channel. Then we have a special operations channel. So any given day, we monitor 7 police channels just in the city of Fresno. Then when you start looking at the pockets of county agencies, county islands within the city, we start blending those pretty regularly. So it's a difficult task to monitor that many channels and provide communications, especially on a rapidly evolving event. But we do try to reach out to our partners at the Sheriff's Department, and they always have reached out and provided any assistance we've asked for. Would it be nice to be on the same channel with them? Absolutely. Is it logistically capable because of the number of people? We have difficulty just getting air traffic, airtime with our existing districts. So having that many personnel on one channel would be just overwhelming. You wouldn't be able to get on a channel. So we do make an effort to reach out to the Sheriff's Department at any given time. But sometimes, I think, when we do get busy, it becomes an afterthought, and that we do have to be better with that.
I'm Greg Gallardi. I'm a captain at the Sheriff's Office, and I oversee all patrol operations for the county. In addition to that, I do oversee communications as well. I think Captain Hall was very to the point. I think we do have a good line of communication as it goes right now. Logistically, it would be quite an accomplishment to have that many departments and units communicating on the same channel at the same time. Currently, right now, we have several contracts with some of the other PDs, and that in and of itself is quite a challenge. So we can always improve simulcasts and a couple other things that we have with their support, but going off of the same channel would be quite difficult. And I think it's working pretty well. Could there be a faster communication as far as communication lines between the 2 dispatches, like telephone lines? Easier communication? Yeah, we can improve some of those areas. So, any questions for Fresno County? You're welcome.
I've got Supervisor Borges punched up.
Totally
Did you
forgot
forget already?
to operate this. Hey, Greg. Oh, you already sat down. Oh, no.
Thought I got off the hook. Anyways,
Well,
first I want to apologize to the deputy chief for demoting him. So I called him captain. Sir.
Well, this might be a question I'm posing to both you and to our CIO, Gene Rousseau. As we've talked about a substation for the sheriff, have we incorporated the future needs for communications and dispatch into how the city and the county are, especially the county, contemplating how a sheriff substation might house a joint facility down the road? Is that even part of the consideration?
No, it isn't. As of this date, we've not really had any discussions on the matter.
So I think the purpose of a meeting like this is, of course, not just to be ceremonial, but to bring merit and demonstrate some progress in these areas. How do we bring this into the discussion? Should we bring this to the board at some point on future facility management?
I think that would be appropriate. A part of this discussion stemmed from the issue that we had a few weeks ago with the assailant downtown.
Your microphone on, Gene.
You got to just talk into it more. Yeah, there you go.
One of the reasons why this item made it to the agenda is the fact that we are both agencies looking at upgrading our dispatch facilities and equipment. So if we're going to have or consider consolidation, now would be the time if we can crack the nut. But secondarily was the incident that happened approximately, I believe, a month ago with the shooter downtown, and the level of communication between our agency and the city certainly could have been better. So I think the reason why it's on the agenda is to somehow improve that communication so that we're on the same. We're provided that information in a timely manner, so as a county we can react. M Street in front of the courthouse was shut down by the city as a response to the incident, and the county was struggling with access in and out of the courthouse. So it affected both the county administration and certainly the court administration. So better communication, which happened an hour or two later, but there was some critical time that was lost between the two, and that's kind of what we're talking about, a part of what we're talking about today. Dispatch is certainly something we can consider and should consider, but the communication in those type of events, maybe having a joint training exercise between the agencies on how to share information and share it quickly and immediately makes sense to me. If you have any more comments you'd like to make, Captain, on the matter.
I think that's a fair assessment, but I also know that when you have a large-scale action or incident that occurred that day, it was easy for us to let them do their job and monitor their channel and get the same information. It was a matter of disseminating the rest of the information to the county umbrella, the rest of the agency, so that we could operate within our deals. But that's a fair assessment. As far as the Area 2 substation and dispatch, it hasn't been something that we've considered. Significant costs would be added, but we're looking at other avenues.
So I'll bring this up with Chairman Pacheco. Maybe we can discuss this offline for future facility considerations in coordination with Sheriff Mims. Andy, please.
During our recent remodel, on updating our 911 system, we did look at different facilities. And in fact, one of the facilities that we did look at is a facility at our corporation yard, which was large enough to house both of our 911 centers, the counties and the cities. Unfortunately, the facility didn't meet earthquake standards, and the cost was just too high to make it a viable option. So we are always looking for facilities to combine it. And he's right. The optimum in that situation would be to have our people in the same room where they can hear the communications back and forth, and so that they know when things are going on immediately, real time. So obviously, it would be nice to have both of our centers and Clovis's all under one roof.
What's the square footage of the city needs? Do you know?
Our current facility is about 5,000 square feet, I believe. I'm not sure what the county's is, but we were looking at about a 10,000 square foot facility that would have probably been able to take both the city, the county, as well as probably the SO. We'd also like to incorporate American Ambulance into a facility because we do work very closely with with emergency services as well and the fire.
Thank you.
Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Chief, just it's me over here. Yeah, I wanted to. You actually led right into what my line of question was going to be, almost picking up where Supervisor Borges left off. I don't want this to be ceremonial. I totally agree with that. And I've heard from both you and the sheriff's captain that there can be improvements. And I think it's fair to say that I want to know precisely what those improvements are, and even if they are too big, we should know. And if we can't do it today, we should be talking about, in my estimation, how do we move toward that? And I'm not sure exactly what it is, but we should be looking for it. And so in your mind, I heard you mention maybe the low-hanging fruit is pulling everybody at least under the same building where we can share information quicker, which may not, does that relieve the need from having everybody on the same channel if we had at least the communications housed in the same place?
Yeah, I'm sure you're aware of that, Wood.
Yeah.
With your experience in the department, having them in the same room helps because you know when something in another channel is active because the buzz starts to go. And so in the same room, you start to hear it. In fact, it's not uncommon for a 911 call taker to yell across the room when something's a real emergency where it can't wait to be typed. They'll actually yell it to the dispatcher. You know, there's a gun, give the description. So it's real time. And absolutely, it does help to be under the same roof.
Yep. And help remind me, Chief, what were some of the challenges with that? I mean, I know everybody cited money. Is money the only issue, or were there other logistical issues, or were the logistical issues driving the financial costs of it?
Well, generally, it's funding. We have to have a backup generator. We have to have good power sources, clean power sources to those communication centers. We also have to have reliable backup power. 911 center can't go down. It can never go dark. So we have to have a good, reliable center. Just bringing them up to code, getting the backup generator, it's expensive.
Now, and this may be more for Bruce or Gene, one of you guys can jump in, because I already know I'm just going to jump right over Andy here, and I don't want to put him in that position. Is this something, if we wanted to share cost on that, is it still cost prohibitive? Because I get what Chief Hall is saying with, all of the issues with backup generation, what have you, making sure that thing can run 24 hours, but could we share cost on that?
Well, there's certainly the opportunity to share costs. The challenge in the past has been the cost. I'm not sure what the state of repair or replacement is for the county's current dispatch system. I know ours is a rather, from a technology standpoint, probably could use an upgrade. But for example, we've done the assessment on the fire department and the public safety communications upgrade. In fact, that assessment came back with about a $28 million cost just for the replacement of our system. The other opportunity is to look at the software systems used by the two agencies. Fresno PD uses Data 911. County and rest of the outlying cities use a different dispatch software. So not only do we need to deal with the equipment and the hardware replacement, we're also going to need to put everybody on the same operating system. And I believe the county's operating system also deals with jail operations, which is a little bit different than what we do. But given that it works for the other outlying agencies, I think we'd be able to bridge the technological challenge from as long as we just go into this with our eyes wide open, that we're not only talking about hardware replacement, but also now transitioning across the county to a complete different operating system.
Gene, I'm curious your thoughts, if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity to have the conversation, because I believe the city was participating with our sheriff's department early on in the assessment to upgrade the equipment. We're currently still in that process. We have our equipment's provided by Motorola. They're no longer going to support it here in the next year or two, and we have to do something. But the opportunity I think is it's a good opportune time, because the county just approved the EMS contract. That part of that contract, or part of the agreement, is to expand the EMS dispatch services out at our courtyard. So we've been in We've been talking to EMS. We've actually had a conversation with CAL FIRE about considering a joint dispatch proposal. And if we can find, again, surprisingly, dispatch really doesn't take up much square footage, which is helpful. But the equipment is an issue. We're looking at most likely leasing it and seeing what we can buy down early on. But to have the conversation now, it makes a lot of sense because we're both updating equipment. The EMS contract, again, was just approved, which is going to require expansion either out where we're currently out at the Hamilton Yard or another location.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. And I'll tell you, I'm going to wrap up my comments here and give my colleagues an opportunity to weigh in. The reason why I wanted to add some additional thought to that, precisely because I think what the sheriff's captain mentioned when we had our active shooter downtown, with the sheriff's department literally being, a couple of blocks away, if just a minor communication lapse potentially could have saved someone's life, funny enough. And so while talking about communications may not always be the sexiest thing in the world for the listening public and those of us that are interested, it's absolutely critical. And if there's anything that can be done today from this, the council and the board working together, I don't know if it's, at a bare minimum, at least having an offshoot of this discussion with the working committee that you already have, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mayor, furthering that and maybe bringing in, law enforcement. But if nothing else, we should be at least doing that, because I think both the CAO and the city manager, and the chief and the captain here think it's a worthy discussion. So thank you, guys.
Let me say here, before I bring next council member up, that the key is directing the staff to get engaged, because we can talk a lot about this stuff and all agree, but until it gets to the staff level, then we can get some changes on it. Okay, Member Bredefeld.
Yeah, Captain Hall. Just a question for you. You brought up the communication, and Supervisor Borges did. It brought back some memory about Polly Klaas in Petaluma, who was kidnapped, and that was broadcast on the CHP channel. That the guy who kidnapped her actually was pulled over, as I recall, by the police, but they hadn't heard the broadcast because they weren't on the CHP channel. Is that kind of the same thing that we have here, that we have not gotten on the same channel, and something like that could actually still be going on today?
Well, we do a much better job of communications back then. We've got the Amber Alerts and a lot more. We've modified a lot of our policies and procedures as a result of tragedies like that. It's still possible that in lower level crimes that it could be occurring and that it may not get back to us, and vice versa, it may not get back to the county. We're talking about maybe a burglary vehicle or something like that. But generally on the high priority crimes, the homicides, the shootings, we get that information out pretty quick to our brothers and sisters out there.
Okay. But is this also something that we're talking about rectifying for the future, where there is quicker communication? You're not going to be on the same channel, right? I mean, you can't do that. I think that's what you said.
That's correct. Now one of the fix was mentioned here is updating our if everybody was on the same CAD system. In other words, if it popped up on our screens all of at the same time, emergencies, we would all get them. And he's absolutely correct that if we were all on the same CAD system, you can get those. You can get those on your computer because those are printed and you can read them as they come up. But the radio channels, they get so busy that it almost becomes white noise after a while. You just can't keep up with that kind of volume.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Member Capriolio.
Thank you. A couple of questions. It seems pretty obvious that for the sake of public safety, the most effective way is for all of us to work as one. So maybe the CAD system would be a more viable option than radio communication. I'm not sure, but it seems like we should be able to figure that out.
I believe a unified CAD system would be the direction that I would recommend we move towards, rather than combining radio channels. I just don't see a fix for that. But a CAD system, and this is really a great opportunity because there's a lot of requirements at the federal level to change our reporting system. So we are going to have to also either update or change our CAD system as well in the near future. So this may be an opportunity for us to reach out with the county and move in one direction.
Now, do you know if there's other larger populated county, city areas that use the CAD system, or what system do they use that we may be able to fold into our joint efforts for public safety?
I don't know if other counties are doing it. I do know there's a rapid evolution in the computer automated dispatching systems that are coming out with new technologies that are much better than the old technologies that we currently have. So I believe you're going to see a big transition in the near future. There's a company called Mark 43 that's adopted by Washington, D.C. that they're using, that we're researching. There's also a couple other opportunities that we're looking at that we would love to have our partners at the county involved in.
If we can do a joint subcommittee on this issue, it might be worthwhile to see what the larger populated areas do and how they blend and mix their efforts. And maybe we can help them with a CAD system, or they can help us with whatever they do to function better for public safety. The other thing we talked about is low-hanging fruit or the easy pickings. To me, a good start would be the airport facilities, because we have our helicopter service. We have the fixed-wing aircraft through the sheriff's office. If we could share space, that would make us more effective, in my view, especially with communication. And the second part, to be economically effective, sharing a fuel supply. I think with the volume that's required, we could get a better rate and save the taxpayer money, as well as be more effective in unifying. So I think that is one idea, and the other is to have a common evidence locker, one giant warehouse, if you will, or facility that would accommodate both sides. We would, again, get 2 for 1, and it would be cost effective. But just 2 ideas that we might be able to incorporate if there is a subcommittee. Thank you, Captain. Appreciate it. I did it too.
It's all right. I love being a captain.
We have next either Supervisor Quintero or Councilmember Chavez on the same.
Councilmember Chavez.
On the same channel.
We do tend to be 2 for 1 sometimes, though. So I won't mention the dirty word that everybody's thinking on a consolidation, right? But I'm seeing a lot of opportunities to partner. And so my question was, I don't know if you would have it or maybe staff would have it. A couple of years ago, we did a program where we actually identified the top car burglars and folks that were just habitually breaking the law. And I know that the city actually went out and, I don't want to say leased, but partnered with the county on a jail cell and housing these, individuals that had a high recidivism rate. I mean, do we still have that in place? And if so, how effective has that been? Because I think that could be a conversation for the subcommittee.
We currently pay for 5 beds for the county that we purchase. We use them to house our, generally our auto thieves or our lower level criminals that are causing a lot of problem in the city, but may not rise to the level that the jail can afford to keep them. In other words, they'll get early released. So that we focus on our frequent flyers that are causing a lot of problems in the city, and we designate those beds for them. It's tremendously effective in keeping them off the street. Some of these thieves are stealing 12, 15 cars a day. And when we can get them off the street and we can keep them off the street, that's many victims that aren't getting their cars stolen. So they are effective for that, but they're limited to 5.
So would you say that those 5 beds are essentially always filled or vacancies come and go? I mean, how?
They're always filled, and in fact, sometimes we have to take them out and put somebody else that's a higher priority in them.
Well, and I say that because, Southeast is very unique too. I know that over in Fig Garden we have quite a bit of county islands within, and I know that these individuals operate within both jurisdictions, right? They go into the county island, they go into the surrounding city. I think that'd be a great topic to discuss in the subcommittee and see if we can partner further on that, because I know that burglaries and vandalism and theft are really increasing in this city, and we need to look at creative ways of having those habitual offenders off the street. So thank you for that, Captain.
Supervisor Magzig.
Just a couple of quick comments. So if we're going to go down the road of consolidation, or at least aspects of our law enforcement, I would encourage you to reach out to Fresno State. Question was asked earlier, are there any counties that have done this? Out of state, Las Vegas, I think, is one of a large example where, I think prior to 1973, there were 5 different agencies that operated independent of one another, and they decided to consolidate, and it took, I believe, state action to make that happen too. but they've been operating as the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department since then. But specifically looking at just dispatch, we can take a look at other communities, other counties that have gone through the process of consolidation and pick and choose what we want. For myself, I recognize in Fresno County we're 15 different cities, and we all have, all of the cities have a different expectation of level of service. I think here in the city of Fresno, you're at about 1.7 officers per 1,000. I know in Clovis we strive for about 1.2 officers per 1,000. The sheriff's department has a different number that they strive for as we patrol in the rural areas. So again, we're much more diverse and very much different from, say, a Las Vegas and the level of service that we want to provide to our citizenry. But there are aspects of consolidation that do make a lot of sense, and I would encourage us to reach out to take a look at what the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department is doing specifically around dispatch. Also, I would encourage our law enforcement agencies to reach out to Fresno State, the criminology program, because a lot of the professors there look at aspects of consolidation that may make sense for us. And so to the extent we can use the criminology program, I'm sure Fresno State would be very interested in working with us. So just some general comments.
Thank you. Member Supervisor Mendez.
See if I can make this technology work. I'm not used to. Well, actually, the Air Board, don't we have? We actually have better technology, but it's a little goofy. But still, at the end of the day, we can start working at the committee level, but at the end of the day, really, the sheriff's department and the city police actually need to get together and brainstorm and say, hey, how can we do this better? And at the end of the day, that's where the good ideas are going to end up coming out, because we're just a pack of bloviators here, but you actually have to get out there and do the real work in the real world. So that's my comment.
Very appreciated. Councilmember Soria.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly wanted to maybe point out that in the conversations as we move forward, I think it'd be great to also include State Center Community College, since they have also their own, department. And I don't know, I think maybe Fresno State, because they are within the city boundaries, and if we're really looking at efforts as to how we are more collaborative and work effectively and efficiently, I think it would be great to also bring them in as part of the conversation.
Actually, the School Liaison Act that I wrote last year encourages joint meetings between the City Council and the school districts, including State Center and Fresno Unified, which I think would be received here in Fresno. I'm going to call anybody in the public would like to speak on this item. Howard Watkins, have the card. You have 3 minutes, Howard. State your name and address for the record.
Howard Watkins, 1785 West Dovewood Lane, Fresno, 93711, in the city and the county. I think all of you have received in an email from me, I don't know if you've caught it yet, because yesterday was a holiday, a paper I wrote called Conception to Age 2, The Key to Better Education, Health, and Lowering Crime. The discussion you just had is how to make the city and county more efficient in responding to crime. The city and the county both spend, I would venture, more than half their budget, especially if it's general fund money, responding to crime. And it's never ending. If you can add 500 more officers to the city, you'd still have crime. You need to find the will and the resources to have the most effective crime prevention program, and that is at conception to age 2. That parents or prospective parents become educated on how critical that is to the child's development, and when babies are born, that they receive whatever services they need. The county has a nurse family partnership program that serves up to 250 first-time pregnant low-income mothers, and they have a waiting list of over 1,000. Virtually every person that's incarcerated in prison had a bad conception to age 2. You want to lower crime? If you invest $1 million a year for 10 years, in 10 to 20 years, you're going to start saving $20 to $30 million because you won't have so many people out there committing crimes. They'll be doing well in school. They'll be reading clearly on grade level by third grade. They'll graduate high school. They won't be dropouts. They won't be looking for gangs. And this is, if there's a silver bullet to social issues, conception to age 2 is that. And I want to encourage, this is a great historic meeting, but to also have one with the local school districts, because they have the ability to educate their students who will soon become parents, have children who will then be going to the schools. If their new children have a good conception to age 2, they'll be doing well in schools, and the school districts will be saving money. And I would note Fresno Unified is already looking to develop such a curriculum. Fresno County Office of Ed is very supportive of this. The District Attorney, Lisa Smitkamp, is very supportive of this. Jerry Dyer understands this issue. You still need to deal with crime today, but if you added 1,000 officers that you have no means the money to do, you're still going to have crime, and more importantly, victims. Every homicide kills the victim and causes great injury to the family. If the person that perpetrated it hadn't done that, they wouldn't have had that problem. You also save, and if I could just very briefly, the millions of dollars spent to arrest, try, convict, sentence is in the county over $300 million a year. Nationally, it's hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We need the prevention side, so I encourage you to find a future meeting to do that.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
Does anyone from the public else want to speak on this issue? If not, we'll go to the next issue. State your name and address. Sheriff Anderson.
My name is John Anderson. I'm here as a citizen today. P.O. Box 345, Bryant, California. Let's go back to the communications between the public safety agencies, if I could. I think the mayor, you mentioned in your opening that the CHP, the sheriffs, and the city cannot communicate. Well, I don't want you to forget the CHP. Crime's mobile, and when people rob a store or kill their wife, they get in a car, and the Highway Patrol catches them if they know about it. And so I would urge you that anything that you do to improve bilateral communications between your two departments, that you include the Highway Patrol in the discussions. Because I can tell you from experience, there's nothing more disconcerting than sitting in and seeing 3 local units go rolling by at code 3 and not having the faintest idea of what's going on. And now they contact dispatch center to dispatch center to dispatch center. We've got the technology where it could be car to car on those high priority cases, those kind of things. And I just urge you to, if you do move on this, that you remember the Highway Patrol.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'll move on to the next item, which is the ShotSpotter technology expansion. And let me briefly say that this is something in our budget now. On April 18th, we had a tragedy in this city, and I believe that the ShotSpotter technology was in part responsible for the early apprehension and could have saved lives. And I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to take this out to the public first, and I'll bring it back to the board. I've got a couple cards on this. I've got somewhere. Ed Miller. Just give your name and address for the record.
Ted Miller, Carruthers, California. A couple of police issues, and so I'm compelled, I'm primarily here for another reason, but I'm compelled to make a comment regarding some of the police issues. Last year, a 16-year-old student who was receiving a driving lesson in an unmarked white car with an instructor sitting next to him executed apparently a legal U-turn on Blackstone. It must have been in an unincorporated area of northern Fresno. He was pulled over by a Fresno County deputy sheriff, and the deputy sheriff came to the car with his weapon out, brandishing a weapon. no clear explanation why. Dylan Noble, can you see both my hands, by the way? Good.
Excuse me, this conversation is on the shot spotter technology?
Yep.
Are you going there?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you stick it. You got 3
Okay.
minutes on. Okay.
All right. We'll stick it on the shot spotter technology. Will the shot spotter technology prevent killing of an unarmed 18-year-old by 3 Fresno police officers? Will the shot spotter technology contribute to safety training for Fresno County deputies so that a deputy does not unholster his loaded weapon, point it in the direction of a deputy sergeant, and then place his finger on the trigger and kill Sergeant Rod Lucas on Halloween? Those are my questions. Thank you, Mayor Brand. I look forward to talking to you later.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public want to comment on this item? Let me add, too, that when our meeting with Supervisor Pacheco and Mendez, I asked them if Fresno County would consider adding some square miles on the county islands to our existing grid. And I made the same request to Fresno Unified. Member Quintero or Chavez?
Thank you, Mayor. So I had a chance to work on this when I was a school board member over at Fresno Unified last year, and just wanted to share with my colleagues that there's the point that the system is reactive to a lot of the shots being fired in neighborhoods, but one of the values that we saw as well, and the reason that they were installed surrounding schools with it, is also a deterrent. I think as criminals understand and know that the system is throughout areas, it greatly reduces their desire to go to those certain neighborhoods. And so I think that this is a great system. I agree, Mayor. I think it did save lives that day. I also think it continues to save lives and keep communities safe. We've seen that with statistics around schools where we place this system, and I'm hoping that you can have some additional productive conversations with not just the school district, but other entities, State Center Community College, Fresno State, the county, Central Unified, and that we come up with safe zones, so to speak, because I think the community really appreciates that. That's the feedback I've gotten from constituents in my area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the board or the council want to speak in this item? If not, I'll move on to the next item. Item number 3 is the marijuana ordinance, and I'll briefly say that Councilmember Butterfield and myself are working together on an ordinance we plan to bring out shortly. This has been discussed with Supervisor Pacheco and Mendez with the goal of getting the city and the county consistent on our policies. And I'll leave it at that, and I've got about 4 or 5 cards here from the public. I'll start with George Boazian. Your name and address for the record.
George Boyajian, 916 East Griffith, Fresno 93704. Good afternoon, council members and board of supervisors. It's good news that you guys are working on an ordinance, but hopefully, want to get some public input into the ordinance that you guys are creating would be appreciated. I just want to give a quick history of Fresno. We've been banning cannabis business activities in Fresno for over 8 years. I know that because my business was one of them that got sued back in 2009, and I was forced to shut down. At that time, city filed lawsuits against 14 other operating dispensaries and immediately forced them to shut down. A lot of them moved out of town. Some of them moved into the county pockets. And then in 2010, the county implemented a ban. In 2013, county adopted the administrative fine of $1,000 per plant for every plant that was cultivated. What these bans have done in Fresno in these last 8 years is they have created a black market. Believe it or not, in Fresno, that hasn't prevented a growing industry. Banning businesses only creates this gray market. Today, there are more than 40 plus unregistered, unaccounted for cannabis businesses in county and Fresno. I'm a businessman in Fresno. I've been living in Fresno for 17 years. I have 3 other businesses, including construction and also car restoration shops. I employ people. I have offices here in town. So I like to see some kind of sensible regulations, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Butterfield. All these bans do is they feed into the illegal economy. And what these illegal businesses do is they create public safety hazards. A lot of these businesses are located near schools. They're unaccounted for. They're not paying taxes. The product is not tested. There's no accountability for any of those. So maybe what we should do is go back to the way we had in 2014. I remember when the city created a committee that was doing some research. That's where I would like to see the county and the city come together, jointly do. Stanislaus County is doing that currently with the City of Modesto series and some of our other cities. They're together in creating ordinances to allow businesses. So before you guys start banning businesses again, because we've been doing this for 8 years now, let's take some time to do some research. Ask some neighboring cities. Department of Consumer Affairs has created a Bureau of Cannabis Regulation that has released proposed regulations. They're on their website right now. It's the Bureau of Cannabis Regulation. A lot of cities in the valley are actually created ordinances too. Coalinga is one of them. City of Merced is another. Modesto's in the process of doing that. Stockton and Lompoc. So all these cities must know something we don't. I would like to see us come together and do some research, do some studies on the subject, and then if we choose to ban, let's ban. But let's take all costs into consideration. I'm not talking about tax revenue. Thank you for your time,
Thank you.
sir. Yeah.
Michael Green?
Hi, Michael Green. Thank you for having this meeting. It's been about 3 years. I think I'll just start off with an apology. About 3 years ago, I think, is the last time the city addressed personal cultivation. And Councilmember Baines, I believe, was driving that. And we didn't quite get there, and I apologize for that. We were close to an ordinance, and we managed to grasp defeat. Here we are right now talking about perhaps a latest, greatest ban, but I'm reminded of 40 years ago, basically. I'm having my 40th high school reunion this summer, and back then it was the jocks and the socias and the stoners. And the ban back then was total prohibition with felonies for anybody, and there was marijuana anywhere you could find it in the city of Fresno. So if you're talking about banning something on paper, go ahead and knock yourself out. But if you're talking about physically banning cannabis in the city and county of Fresno, good luck with that. You're not going to have any better luck with that than the state or the federal government did. Most recently, I am working with the growers group up in Lake County. I'm sitting on the Planning Commission in the city of Lakeport. So all I can do is suggest some ideas of what's happening around the rest of the state. What seems to work well: appoint an ad hoc committee, and don't just put county and city people on it, put some of your own residents on it. Put people with the industry expertise on it. There's a brand new industry. Try to do it. Do your due diligence. There are no less than 5 public comment periods going right now. CDFA, Cal Cannabis Cultivation Licensing, Department of Public Health with the Office of Manufactured Cannabis Safety, Department of Consumer Affairs and its Bureau, and the Board of Equalization is working on its tax regulations, and CDFA is also working on its programmatic EIR. While you're getting ready to ban adult use cannabis, please remember the patients. Many of you have, and I do remember this and I take it to heart, many of you have expressed compassion for patients who use cannabis for medical purposes. I ask you to continue to do that. Don't confuse patients and throw them under the bus with the stoners. And I would ask you, whatever you're going to do, try to separate personal use from commercial regulations. Proposition 64 passed slightly in the city of Fresno, didn't quite pass in the county, but if you look back to 2010 when Prop 19 was on the ballot, the margins changed substantially. Tens of thousands of people use cannabis in the city and county of Fresno. I ask you, finally, to join other cities and counties in the state of California to regulate cannabis and improve public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to the next card, we agreed that we'd have 15 minutes of public comments on each item. I've got about 3 or 4 extra cards here that would go past the 15 minutes. So what I'd like to ask is the other speakers, if you could maybe cut it down to 2 minutes and everybody could have an opportunity to speak. So I'll start with the next card is Shannon Luce.
lady and gentlemen of the City Council and Board of Supervisors, of course, Mayor Brand. Sorry. My name is Shannon Luce, Fresno, California. Definitely not my first time in front of most of you guys. Supervisors have turned faces in the last few years. I will keep it short. Mr. Boyagi and Mr. Green both said some really key points that I was going to bring up. The chronology of what's going on in this town, from the bans in 2009, the bans in 2012, the cultivation bans. I think President Olivier was quoted in the Bee as saying upwards of 60 services and 2 to 3 dozen storefronts. Mr. Boyajian pointed out, not running properly in the city or the county. There's definitely a demand. I mean, everything was shut down so long ago. That proves that there's a demand. I mean, if there's that many shops running, and this is a topic, I mean, it was passed in the city, Prop 64 in the fall. So the demand shows that there is both a need for medical and recreational. Please talk about it with open hearts and minds. Typically this leads to a ban, but hopefully we can change your mind. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Ted Miller.
Thank you, distinguished bloviators. After Prop 64 passed on November 8th, and before the vote was certified, the Fresno County Supervisors, 3 of whom, Borges, Mendez, Pacheco, are sitting here today, voted yes on a law that made it illegal for you to possess marijuana on your own property. Because of the discussion during that period, the phrase was added, unless it's allowed under Prop 64 or something like that. But basically, you guys passed a law that said it's illegal to possess marijuana on your own property after 64 had passed, but before the election had been, written, before the election had been certified. So you're playing games. Fresno City Council, do not rely, and Sal, I'm looking for you to do something to change that. But Fresno City Council members, do not rely on the lead. That ain't going to stop me. Do not rely on the lead that the Fresno supervisors have taken. Okay? They are playing games with this. Do you worry about youth getting access to marijuana? Do you? Well, if you do you lay in bed at night worrying about the 13-year-old 7th grader, a young lady going home from school and stopping at 7-Eleven and picking up a 12-pack of Budweiser and a couple of cartons of Marlboros? Do you worry about that? No, you don't. And you don't worry about that because they are a legal licensed seller of alcohol and tobacco. And so you don't worry about a 13-year-old 7th grader stopping on her way home from middle school and picking up a 12-pack of Budweiser. If there's a black market, they're going to allow that 13-year-old 7th grader to buy marijuana. Sorry, pal, I'm still talking. I'm going to take my full 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Brand. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so in 2010...
You have 2 minutes. Your 2 minutes is up.
No, the card I filled out said I had 3 minutes.
Well, we're making the rules here. It's 2 minutes.
No, it's 3 minutes.
2.
It's 3. I don't have that. Do you have that in writing? Is that in writing?
I'm telling you, it's 2 minutes. See you later.
I'll be back during public comments.
Good. Have a good day. Christopher Leal. This is a special meeting. There'll be other times. Both the city and the county will be having meetings in the future to discuss this. You'll be given another few minutes. Sir, would you be quiet, please? Yeah. Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Christopher Leal. I live on 9711 South Valentine. That's south of Fresno, southwest Fresno. Good afternoon, good evening to you guys. Clint, I've seen you on 26 all the time. Big fan. Big fan of the punchlines. Awesome sports. Love it. I'm here to speak for the favor of Prop 215. I am a member. I am a patient. I do believe that there are people like myself or beyond myself that need needs. I'm pretty sure everyone's tried prescription pills, everyone's tried alcohol, everyone's tried tobacco. That does not ever help people's needs, whatever they need. Marijuana, there's a lot of good things and bad things, just like politics, just like good businesses, bad businesses, good shops, bad shops. It's a 50-50 thing. Everything does need to be regulated to a T, but not on the benefit of others. Okay, it doesn't mean give us medical patients all the freedom we can. We can run across the country as however we feel. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is come to a conclusion that's good enough, not only for yourselves, but for the people like myself, people that are here that have something to say. MBS is one of the people that inspired me to be what I am today, catching my dream to be a shop to meet people like myself and bring them the needs. I understand there's a lot of bad things going on, but that comes down to the regulation. As long as it's not a ridiculous regulation, I feel for people like myself, because when we walk out and maybe I'm going ahead and I'm blazing on a joint because I need it, blah, 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 my neighbor gets a little upset because you guys are saying that it's illegal for people like myself that are medical carded. We have, we're over 21. We're in our own state, our own place, and now you're telling us we can't do that. But we pay water, we pay the trash, we pay our taxes here in Fresno. We're not asking for all the freedom. I think what we're asking for is let us do what we do for the patients. There's a need, just like anything else. I'm just saying that. That's all. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Warner.
Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and bow out. I'm going to let my battle buddy, my brothers in arms, go ahead and step up and speak for the collective. I pray they can pay attention to him as that speaks for a lot. Thank you.
Name and address for the record.
Gentlemen, my name is Craig Mulligan. My address is 3363 East Sierra Madre, Fresno, California. I'm coming here today to talk to you in favor of marijuana. The biggest issue right now, particularly for veterans, okay, the biggest issue obviously is that PTSD is one of the most prevalent diagnoses for veterans, especially myself. I served for 10.5 years in the Army and the front lines in the infantry, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay, I'm sure we've all heard the slogan 22 a day is 22 too many. That stat doesn't accurately reflect the landscape. Only 25 of the states actually reported as part of that survey, so we could theoretically double that number. And one of the biggest issues is that the number one leading cause of suicide for veterans is overdose on pharmaceuticals, on substance, on alcohol, on cocaine. These veterans are already self-medicating, and they're self-medicating in a harmful way. Continuing this ban only removes safe access to a form of medication that would serve them. Now, the reason why marijuana is different than the pharmaceutical prescriptions they're getting from the VA today is because these pharmaceutical prescriptions all come with a black label warning, the most severe warning that the FDA could put on a prescription medication. And why? Because it increases chance for risk of suicide. They include a symptom of dependency, so this veteran could not just simply stop taking this medication. If they do, their entire life will just spiral down. And as a veteran taking that medication myself, I have memory problems. And so sometimes if I can't remember if I took my memory because of my traumatic brain injury, I don't want to take it again because I can't remember. But if I didn't take it, I don't remember, my family suffers. To caveat, one more thought for the board here. To caveat that 3 gentlemen before me pled that you guys would okay it so at least we could do surveys and do studies, right? I would like to point out that Colorado has already decided that there is enough benefits for the veteran population that they've actually decided they are going to do studies currently to determine the effectiveness of treating PTSD with veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Stephen, if I get your name right, who lives on Peach Avenue? Name and address for the record.
Hi, Steven Ziskowitz, 4083 Peach Avenue. I'm from Milwaukee, the 5th most dangerous city in the U.S. I moved here 13 years ago because cannabis was supposed to be legal here, supposedly. And back there, I was just a criminal. You look at the laws. Oh, I can go to jail for a few years for doing what I'm doing, for having some plants and taking this medicinally. Now my uncle's been killed there in Milwaukee. His name was Greg. it's just, you're putting it back, to the criminal side, and we got people overdosing on heroin, et cetera, meth in the city, and there's a demand. We all need it a little bit sometimes, possibly, whether it's a topical cream, whether, you just want to relax a tiny bit each day. I'm a software engineer, and I graduated from San Jose State, and I formed Other Side Cannabis Collective in San Bruno, and we were taken down, and all our stuff was taken. We're not criminals. There's no choice at this point. You have to give us a license for at least the medical, and any amount of hemp growing. Maybe put a limit on the cannabis, the other growing, but recreational and medical would be the way to go. But if you want to put a limit on it, I guess just say medical. The taxes are better. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last card. I'm going to bring it back to the board. I've got member Supervisor Borges.
I got to say, Mayor, there's a lot more interesting public comments at the city than there is at the county. I miss that. We've talked a lot about this issue over the years, and there are some good people on both sides of the marijuana discussion. I'm not completely heartless. I understand that there are different philosophies out there. Mine happens to be, however, a little bit more strict, which is why when I was on the board in 2013, I put the framework with Sheriff Margaret Mims to make Fresno County a dry county. Perhaps. Have you talked to my wife? But my question to you is this, Bruce, to the city. We understand at the county that we went dry initially, and then through the variety of propositions, and lastly Prop 64, I want to make it clear to everyone that we are not trying to overrule the will of the California voters. That is superior to anything that we do. However, 64 leaves many gray areas and significant ambiguities that are best reserved, in my opinion, to the land use authority of a respective jurisdiction, whether it's the city or the county. My longstanding philosophy, and I've talked with Mayor Brand about this and others, is we need consistency. That is key. I represent District 2, which has a lot of county islands. It makes no sense for there to be a policy substantially different on one side of the street and substantially different on the other. So that's been my goal. I'm hopeful that the city of Fresno, as you revisit this issue, I know Member Bredefeld is bringing this back and is in consultation with the mayor's office, that we have identical policies. And if there are any interest in changing that we at least have early discussions before that in hopes that the appropriate law enforcement personnel will have an opinion that can best educate us. But Bruce, my question to you is, when a business opens up in the city of Fresno, do they have to have a business permit?
Depending on the business, yes, it has to have that and a conditional use permit.
And a CUP. My recollection is a little fuzzy but years ago when I was here on this dais, my recollection is that the language in the CUP and the business permit required compliance with both state and federal law. Does that language, am I recalling that correctly?
Yes.
So if that language currently exists, that a business must, for its purpose and operations, must be compliant with both state and federal law, is it fair to say that dispensaries are not compliant with federal law, that they should not be permitted in the city of Fresno? Doug?
Well, right now, our current ordinance on medical marijuana says that the dispensaries are only allowed if they would be in compliance with both state and federal law. So, in effect, they're not allowed right now. The draft of the ordinance that we are working on right now in coordination with the county would just flat out say dispensaries are not allowed.
Okay. So if folks do wish for any modification to occur, I would still default to that. I hope that the city of Fresno will adopt a policy not inconsistent with the counties. And lastly, what changed my mind was having a conversation with a state senator from Colorado. And in Colorado, I asked the senator, you guys are the vanguard of legalization, and what is your profit motive and how is it playing out? And she told me that they got about $23 million of increased taxable revenue from the sale of marijuana. Now that sounded enticing, and we got a letter from Sheriff Margaret Mims that speaks to the financial motivation of certain places in Fresno County and elsewhere, and discourages that. But how much extra was the law enforcement overhead? And her answer was that it ate it all up, that this financial motive is a bit of a ruse. So I'll leave that as my final comment, that to make things legal purely from a financial standpoint, I don't think is always a good policy.
Member Bredefeld?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Bredefeld, you know, and I'm not even going to talk on this topic, but you know, there's a lot of disrespect happening in this chamber right now. And while we certainly respect you all's ability to talk to us, I think we're respectful when you guys talk to us. We certainly expect the same type of respect in return. If you cannot comport yourself, then maybe you should leave. But we're trying to have a decent debate here. No, you're gonna no. No. And as a matter of fact, you're going to sit down, and we're going to eject you from there. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. So what I'm asking for is the same respect that we give you all, you give them to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Member Bredefeld?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for that, Councilmember Baines. You know, first, before I offer my comments, I want to thank the county for what you've done in terms of banning these dispensaries. You've shown real leadership, and I appreciate the fact that you did it, and I think you did it. It was a unanimous vote. And I also want to thank Mayor Brand. Mayor Brand has been working with the county and all the cities within the county so that we all have a uniform policy if the cities, municipalities, determine that it is wise to ban recreational dispensaries, marijuana dispensaries. Now understand, we are not rolling back Prop 64. Prop 64 is passed and people have a right to smoke marijuana in their homes. But Prop 64 gave municipalities the right to ban dispensaries in their communities if they want to. That's Prop 64. That's the law. And so we in the city of Fresno are going to be taking up this issue either the 15th of June or the 22nd, and it's my hope that we're going to ban these dispensaries. If we ban these dispensaries, the people who advocate for marijuana can still smoke marijuana in their house. They're going to be allowed up to 6 plants, and nothing we do here is going to stop that. Nothing we do here is going to try to prevent that. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is look at what's happened in Denver and Colorado. And I guess people can pick data the way they want. I'm a psychologist. I know, people can manipulate data any way they want. But we've heard from the district attorney in Denver. We've heard from people who have been involved in the industry there. And we know for a fact that people who smoke marijuana, particularly youth, young people, it's hurt them academically, it's hurt them socially, it's hurt them emotionally. The data is all there. We know that young people's brains continue to develop at 24, and smoking marijuana has a deleterious effect on their brains. That's data, that's science, that's reality. And for me, if we were to allow these dispensaries in our community, I think it sends a terrible message to our youth. I think, frankly, Prop 64 sends a terrible message to our youth. But it's the law. It took 4 times from the 1970s for Californians to finally pass it. I think it was unwise, but it's the law. But it gives us the right to ban these dispensaries, and that's something I think we all, if we take our role here in this community and what happens to our kids in our community, we ought to ban these dispensaries. We also know that in communities such as Colorado and Denver, crime rates have gone up, traffic fatalities have gone up, homelessness has gone up. In Pueblo, Colorado, it doubled. We have a problem with homelessness in this community. We know that it goes up. There's no question about it. One of the speakers said, I'm worried about 13-year-olds drinking alcohol and smoking. So am I. I'm worried about it too. And I'm worried about them smoking marijuana. I'm worried about them using other drugs. But because they may abuse other drugs doesn't mean we should start down this road where we should legalize these drugs or certainly have dispensaries or putting them on corners in certain, you need to be quiet. You're rude. You're very rude. And nobody gave you trouble when you came up there. You need to stop your rude behavior.
Mr. Miller, would you escort Mr. Miller out?
No more.
So this law,
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know where my mom can get cancer
Would
medicine.
you please sit down or you're going to be kicked out next?
I know.
and the person who spoke before, a veteran, first of all, I want to thank you for your service. I am a clinical psychologist. I work at the VA, have for the last 26 years. I work with veterans every day who have PTSD. Now, this is an area that they're going to do research and have been doing research, and I'm interested in the research. But we need to see the research, okay? And we're treating veterans with PTSD every day and helping them progress. I don't know that marijuana is a solution for that or not. We need lots of research, years of research for that to happen. But I do know that marijuana taking, veterans out, I've seen it abused. I've seen it as a gateway drug. I've seen the adverse effects that it's had on a lot of people in the course of my career. And so, having said that, Prop 64 is law, but we have the right to ban these dispensaries. I don't want to see these dispensaries in neighborhoods. And so I hope that we do ban them. And again, I want to commend the county and the other communities that have banned them, and I want to thank the mayor for his leadership on this issue as well.
Thank you.
Yes, you can. If that's okay, can he come up, or
No.
Mayor?
Do you want to call him out?
Yeah, if you want to come up, sir, but just to respond quickly. Okay, sure.
So I understand that you work with the VA, and I understand that the VA's purpose is to mitigate the damages, specifically of PTSD and the comorbidity rates that veterans experience in the system. Unfortunately, going through the system myself and acknowledging the fact that the veteran suicide rate is more than double of the entire general population of America, it seems to me that the status quo and the prescription medications aren't working. Because if they were working, the suicide ideation within the veteran population would go down. So are you then insisting that we continue to do the same thing and beat our head against the wall until it goes down? Or would you be interested in being proactive and possibly establishing Fresno as one of the leading forerunners of this case study in determining the validity of marijuana, CBD and THC?
Let me just say, I certainly don't speak for the VA. I'm just speaking for myself. And I appreciate your concerns. It's the concerns that I have. I mean, this isn't the arena for that. We're talking about dispensaries. But thank you again.
Well, I think then with dispensaries, I mean, you brought up that point. I think that the point you brought up about, the veterans, it doesn't talk about dispensaries at all either. But I think as in respect to dispensaries, veterans deserve a safe access to this. We don't have it. If I want it, I got to go to LA or I got to go 5 hours away. And my anxiety is to the point where I can't really go, this is enough, this is like the max I could have. And a lot of veterans will tell you exactly the same thing. Veterans deserve safe access. If you want to ban it, that's fine, we'll continue the fight. But I think the one thing that is missing is that the proposed criteria should be responsible as opposed to irresponsible.
Thank you.
You trusted us to fight for our country. Trust us to medical marijuana.
Member Olivier.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Brand. One of my council colleagues mentioned that he's seen lives destroyed by marijuana. Seen it operate as a gateway drug. I've seen the same thing with alcohol. One needs only to walk over to Courthouse Park to see the human wreckage that's laying in the grass over there. Those are people who self-medicate with alcohol. And many, many, many people do and destroy their lives. My family has been touched to it. Many, many, probably 50% or more of us in this room, our families have been touched in some way by alcoholism. I don't accept that marijuana is the gateway drug that some folks make it out to be. I think that's probably alcohol. But there's one thing that's different between marijuana and alcohol is that alcohol you can buy on the corner store. It's freely available everywhere, even within Radio Park in my district. You can get loaded on something and then go sit in the park. So I think that we have an issue here on our hands that really gets people not just interested but very excited, gets folks who are very passionate on both sides of the issue. I just want to remind my council colleagues and also folks from the County Board of Supervisors that and maybe some clarification from City Attorney. What's the status of marijuana in this city, the city of Fresno? If you could sum it up for me, you can grow, because of Prop 64, you can grow 6 plants inside your home. It's illegal to it's illegal to grow outside your home within city limits. Recreational and medicinal dispensaries are prohibited in the city of Fresno, as are delivery services. Did I just sum it up correctly?
Essentially, except under the new state law, a recreational dispensary would not be allowed until all of the new state regulations are in effect. Mm-hmm. So currently, the city code only bans medical marijuana dispensaries. But in effect, under state law, recreational dispensaries are not allowed yet.
Okay, and what I understand some folks are working on within the city, the mayor and my colleague from District 6 are working on, is a ban of medicinal and recreational within city limits, and a ban of delivery services. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what's being brought forward. Okay,
that's correct.
I have a number of questions for the people who are going to be bringing this forward. Mayor, council member, I do have a number of questions as we're moving down the line, but I know we have folks in here from the district attorney's office. I know we have folks in here from law enforcement, and obviously doing a good job. But I guess my question is, what would, and this is just rhetorically, I don't want to engage anyone on the dais, or I don't want to engage anyone in the audience, but I need to be sold before approving something like this on what the public policy benefits to such a ban would be. How would that benefit the folks in the neighborhoods to have it on a piece of paper that says it's illegal? Because in reality, we've heard from an industry professional. I've taken a number of meetings with people who are involved in the cannabis industry, not potheads, not Santa Cruz surfing potheads, but people who wear expensive suits, who deal in this industry, who make a lot of money doing it, educated people who understand the industry and the nuances of cannabis. And they seem to believe we have more than 24 dispensaries operating within the city of Fresno, and could be dozens of delivery services operating in the city of Fresno. So when we vote and we have a piece of paper that says this is illegal, it's already illegal. So we're going to double ban it, and then we're not going to enforce it. So it's going to make some people feel good that we double banned it and pot's bad. Go have a malt liquor at Radio Park instead. But then in actual practice, as a set of governments, we are unable to enforce our own ordinances. We are unable to enforce this because we lack those resources. So it seems to me that moving forward, I would be interested in learning more. Mayor, Member Bredefeld, I would be interested in learning more about what you're bringing forward. I would be interested in engaging professionals in the cannabis industry. I would be interested in engaging veterans groups. who wish to be included in some kind of series of meetings or some kind of committee format or something that we could thoroughly vet out this issue before deciding to ban it. Because when we ban it, some folks will feel good, but others will feel bad because they're physically sick, and it will be more difficult for them to get their medicine. So I think compassion is important when we move forward with this, with what we do. I think it's important to keep compassion in mind. I think it's also important to keep in mind that the day after we ban it, we still have 24 dispensaries, in excess of 24 dispensaries open in our city. We still have in excess of 36 delivery services opening in our, or currently open in our city, and those sick people who need it and others are going to find a way to get their medicine and to get their high. You know, I look at this issue of marijuana as like a balloon, and the drug war in general. And obviously, I want people to be safe. I want people to be happy. I want people to prosper in their neighborhoods. I want neighborhoods to be clean and safe. But when you look at it, and it's a balloon that you squeeze, and we squeeze and squeeze, and the balloon's just going to move out from between our fingers because the black market will find a way to not just exist, but the black market will find a way to flourish. So it's my wish that moving forward, Mayor and Member Bredefeld and county supervisors as well, that we could sit at least in a boardroom or a committee of some kind where we can thoroughly vet the issue before moving forward with a ban that can't be enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Pacheco.
Well, Mayor, I would just add that I think your city council debate is going to be a long and contentious issue just sitting here today, because I would just simply remind everyone this item was put on the agenda today. As Supervisor Borges stated earlier, the county is reaching out to the city in that we would like to have whatever the city does, as long as it's similar to what the county does. We'd like the people on the north side of the street to have the same rules as the people on the south side of the street, and the people on the east side of the street to have the same rules as the west side of the street, because we believe that's a better community for everyone which to live in. So whichever way the majority of the council goes, however you so choose, the county is looking to follow a similar ordinance so that we all can live under the same rules. So whichever way your council chooses to go, we'll look to do that. Again, adhering to all of the rules of Proposition 64.
Thank you. That's our goal. Member Baines?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I wasn't going to make any comments, so I'll make them really short. In listening to my colleagues' dialogue, I didn't realize that the proposed ordinance that's going to be coming before us also includes medicinal ban as well, additional medicinal ban as well. Well, as many of you know, and one particular supervisor in particular who wrecked my plans to bring forth, potentially medicinal use here in the city of Fresno, I do not support a medicinal ban. So I certainly am open to dialogues about the recreational portion, but I've never supported a medicinal ban. I have always felt like there's potentially a proper medicinal use. So just so because we're all out here in the public, I would not be supporting any ordinance that includes a medicinal ban.
Okay. Let's do a few closing remarks. That, my family has had some unfortunate experiences with drugs, and it did include marijuana. So this is somewhat from a personal perspective. And I do have a letter here from Fresno County Sheriff Margaret Mims recapping the policies in cities across the county, and basically every city so far has voted for a ban on at least on recreational marijuana, except the city of Coalinga, and I think the city of Parlier is unclear. And I don't think this issue is going to be solved today. There's going to be debates on this. There's no easy answer, but we're trying to go through a process to be fair, to look at the consequences, and at least our studies in Colorado and Washington and other states that legalized it, there were definitely signs that some cities had chosen to ban it, some cities had not chosen to ban it. And those cities who chose to ban marijuana, recreational marijuana, we found that the black market was still up. There was still a profit motive. Same in the cities that legalized it. In fact, in some cases, some cities got very aggressive on their fees. They were so high in their fees, they encouraged the black market to come in. So this is an issue that we'll probably have before the council in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we'll have discussions with, I will at least, with all the council members and get their input to make sure we come forward with the best we can. And on this issue, no matter what direction we go, we're not going to please everybody. Thank you. The next and last issue on our agenda today is discussion of animal control. And I'll just briefly give the meetings we've had with Supervisor Pacheco and Mendez about the possible consolidation of a facility for the city and the county. About, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, when we were both with the SPCA, our cost, I know, was about $2 million per year, and it's now close to $4 million. And I'm sure the supervisors have had similar experiences on their cost. So we're looking potentially at a site we could work together with maybe the same entity that would manage a different entity that would do the animal control. So this is discussion about that issue, and I'll take this out to the public. I have got one card from Cameron Mox. Cameron, are you here?
Mayor, do you want to invite Ted back in?
Hold 1 second. Hold on. Security? You've got 1 minute to get back. Does anybody in the audience want to speak about animal control? If not, I'll bring it back to this body. Just give your name and address for the record.
Yes, Francisco Mendez, 2566 South Habitat, Fresno. I'm talking about dog problems here in Fresno. We know there is more dogs than potholes to repair. There are a lot of problems with dogs, biting kids, going to school. There is no sidewalks on the streets, plus the kids have to deal with dogs. Some even adults have been bitten by dogs. The Southwest Fresno, East Fresno, have a lot of problems with dogs. When we call the dog pounds, there is nobody to answer. When they answer, they get angry. They say, well, we don't care about dogs. We don't pick them up. Even when I catch dogs from the streets or the park near my house, they don't want to pick them up. When I see a dog on the street dead by a car accident or something, they blame me to pick it up myself. Well, we need to change about this issue about dogs and the dog pound in the office, to hire some employees, to train some volunteers. When we want to call, we don't want to call to a machine or a fax machine there. There's nobody to answer, and when they answer, like I say, they hang up. We have the app, Fresco. This issue about the dog problem is not in the app, Fresco. We need to upgrade, please, this app, and we can integrate and, vaccinate dogs or find the owners when they have loose dogs on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public want to speak on this issue? Let's give your name and address for the record.
My name is Ana Cassandra Gutierrez. My address is 152 Walker Avenue. My record is I'm always in these programs and meetings and stuff. I'm all kind of programs, even for the school district. And I have an issue too with about the animals, because there's a lot of people, because they can't fix their pets because the stuff is too expensive. We need more programs for it could be cheaper for us, because there's a lot of families with low incomes. There's people that leave their dogs in the fields by the by the streets and stuff that people don't really know, and sometimes they run them over, and that's because I love animals. Every time I see a dog, I pick them up and I try to have them. If I can't, I'll take them to the shelter. Some people are scared to take them. Some families are scared to take them to the shelters because they think they're going to charge them because they don't have the money to take them. And even for the schools, some schools need, because the dogs follow the kids all the way to school. Sometimes they follow all the way into the side of the campus. and there's people don't know what to do with the dogs. We just need more support for the animals because there's a lot of animals going on. No, it's not just dogs, it's cats. Like, we need more help for that because there's a lot of dogs, and we need more programs for that so they could help us, the community, and the city of Fresno, because there's too much going on. And homeless people, they have dogs, and they don't know how to feed them, and that's why people, like humans, they don't know what to do. Besides the drugs is going on too, the people steal for the cook to try to get money to give them their dog food or try to get something for their dogs won't be as hungry. And then water too, because you know how like it's really hot, especially these days now, it's already summer. Try to get them like cold water for the dogs because sometimes they feel bad. I see them in the streets, even here in downtown. And it's really sad seeing this kind of situation going on in here in Fresno. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon, council members, Board of Supervisors, and Mayor. My name is Grecia Lenes. I'm with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. Now, first of all, we're really excited to see that animal control is brought forth on the agenda. This is a serious issue that a lot of the families that we work with have in South Fresno. Unfortunately, a lot of the family members, because of the time, weren't able to be here. A lot of them have to pick up their kids, and a lot of them volunteer as crosswalk guards. So as this conversation moves forward of consolidating this program, we hope to work together to make sure that these ongoing meetings are at an accessible time and location for the parents. Now, I'd like to start off by sharing a personal story where I was born and raised in Southeast Fresno. Just about a year ago, I was walking my dog on Orange Street, just north of Butler, near Winch Elementary. And up ahead, I see a dog and two little buddies of his walking just stray. So I go back with my dog, just going back home towards Butler when I'm near the clinic, and out of the alleyway, a pretty vicious looking stray dog comes and sprints towards us. Now, I go into the middle of the street, kind of protecting my dog, and what seems like after 10 minutes, I'm just standing there backing away, and I'm finally able to sprint off, all while dodging traffic on Butler. I get home, and I wait about 17 minutes until SPCA finally answers to come pick up the dog. And I share this story because this is an uncommon story that I hear from the community that we work with. Oftentimes, it might be even worse because I have heard many stories where their kids have been bit and they're unable to get any responses from SPCA or the city or the police. So as we're working together, we're excited to see this, and we hope that we continue this effort to really work with all of you all and your constituents to make sure that this is an effective program, that this is a program that really works for this city, and we can look at other cities that have great programs, and move forth with that. And we're at a really opportune time right now because as the city recently passed their own active transportation plan, and the county is working on their own active transportation plan on top of the state allocating $840 million towards the active transportation program just by SB 1 alone, not including the GGRF funds. This is a really good opportune moment to really kind of make sure that the communities that we work in and that you all represent are able to enjoy their neighborhoods, are able to live that active and healthy lifestyle, because we know a lot of the Latino and African American communities suffer from various heart and health-related issues as a result of not being able to get out there and walk around and really just enjoy their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'll bring it back to the dais. Councilmember Baines. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is that good? Cool. Good afternoon, Mayor, supervisors, and council members. My name is Juan Castillo at 2409 Merced Street, Fresno, California, and I'm here representing our Southeast Fresno constituents and residents. I work directly with them. I'm part of an organization, Cultiva la Salud, a nonprofit here in Southeast Fresno, and I just really came up just to very quickly share a little bit about the loose dog issue here. I work directly with residents who every morning walk their children to and from school. And in that walk, right, it's about like a 5-10 minute walk sometimes for residents. They'll encounter probably about, I don't know, somewhere around like 5 loose dogs on that short walk. But these loose dogs, the condition that these dogs are under aren't dogs that you're going to be running into like maybe around, I don't know, a safe petting zoo or something, right? These dogs are often, they haven't been washed. Their nails are very long. They're not used to really dealing with other children or other folks. In short, these dogs are often dangerous. They pose not only a public health hazard, right? They could be contaminated with rabies, and oftentimes they really are. But often they're just unsanitary oftentimes, right? And that's usually not something that's really I think talked about a little bit with this issue with animal control. I think part of the process that the city of Fresno is undergoing and that you all are working towards is to really beautify Fresno. And when I'm out there in Southeast Fresno working directly with families and community, sometimes it's really hard to accomplish that when we have these dogs. I love animals. I love cats and dogs out there, even the squirrels and the birds when they're out there, right? But really, I would just really like to see a strong and cohesive program to come from this, and unfortunately a lot of the community residents that I work with weren't able to attend today's 1:30 p.m. meeting. They are meeting other obligations, but I did just want to come up and speak a little bit to the issue that they deal with as they're walking their children to school and as they're walking just out to the park, say any one of us would, right? Yes, so I think my partners out here has voiced a little bit some of the things that I wish I would have voiced a little bit, but really just echoing everything that they shared back, and I'm really looking forward to see a stronger animal control out here in Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to speak?
Hi, my name is Cameron Moores, and I've been dealing with Andreas on this issue. I live in the county at 739 East Griffith Way. I also own a building in downtown Fresno, so city, county, city, it doesn't kind of matter to me. So at any rate, there is a feral cat issue, at least in Old Fig. I've been communicating with his office regarding this, and I've done some research. I've looked back at how the contracts were set up with Liberty, how Liberty lost it, how looks like the Humane Society came in and took over the contract. But I'll just let you know, it's probably not working. So I have 2 children. Both of them have caught ringworm. One of them was not school age, most likely from handling fecal matter that was in my yard. In between, I want to say, and we were on this issue like 3 years ago, and then it kind of got tabled a little bit, but in between, I think it's February to March on my records, I caught 13 cats, basically, in traps. Took them to the SPCA because the Humane Society wouldn't take them. So, and then they were processed there. So, I've heard a lot of talk about there was going to be a animal shelter, like 3 or 4 years ago, there was going to be a new animal shelter built. That didn't happen. Now, I think you guys are looking at having a private citizen like Daryl Ridenauer come in and donate some money for that, but the problem's probably a little bit more urgent than that. So I'm just here to let you know that. If we want to make this process more didactic, I'd love that too. So.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public want to speak on this item? Now I'll bring it back to Council Member Olivier.
Thank you, Mayor Brand. I wanted to speak first for council colleagues who are new and also supervisors who are new. I wanted to provide a little bit of context, at least from in how I see the state of affairs. First, a little bit of history. I guess it was probably why is everybody smiling? I guess it was probably 2012. We had our annual report from the SPCA come forward, and the director of that organization came to council and alerted us to the fact that the city of Fresno doesn't have, nor does the Board of Supervisors have anyone on the board at the SPCA. At that time, the city of Fresno's commitment was probably about $2.5 million. We cut a check every year to the SPCA. The county also used to cut a check to the SPCA, and I know that probably all of us up here probably sit on in excess of 40 or 50 boards between the entire group. And community groups usually like to have elected officials on their boards simply because, well, for whatever reason they do, and so we are. So I thought, this is really interesting. $2.5 million check we cut per year, and the county, I think, used to cut $1 million check per year, and there was no representation on the board. Why is that important? Because when there are animals chasing our kids to school in the morning, more often than not, the city council office is calling the same number to get the SPCA to respond, just the main number. There's not a back line or some kind of way to call for service on behalf of our constituents, and so that was a problem. So I made the move of convening a committee to analyze this. And Supervisor at the time, Henry Perea, joined me on that committee, but it really went sideways. And it went sideways because there are members of the community who absolutely have to have a no-kill shelter, no matter what. And if the county or the city is euthanizing animals, well, then that's a huge problem for them. And then there are also lots of other people in the community that want animal control to provide services that just on the large scale that we're providing services, it's very, very difficult for animal control to do that. So I think that the board over at the SPCA became very frustrated with me and frustrated with my committee, and they let Mayor Swearingen know at the time that they were terminating the contract. And that it was very difficult for the community groups to set up animal control services, just make it out of whole cloth. And so we ended up with Liberty Animal out in the county, and the city had to go back to the SPCA for more money this time. And so it was a really bad situation. Liberty has since gone away, and we now have some good folks under Brenda Mitchell who are out there and doing a great job for the county. So I think we're dealing with an organization that could become very angry, depending on what is said from this dais, and it could become very angry, especially for city folks, because it's the SPCA that provides services to the city. County's already out on their own, and they're doing their own thing and thriving. But as far as the city, I would just warn my colleagues that it's kind of a sensitive group, and depending on what you say from this dais, may end up jeopardizing animal control services in our city. And I hear people chuckling, but this is what happened. It's very, very serious business, especially when the problems out in the neighborhoods. I mean, you're hearing people come and speak to us. Dogs chasing our kids to school in the morning. There's obviously an issue, but unfortunately, the path to resolving issues does not exist currently. Thank you.
Member Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really quick, I wanted to share a quick story. Yesterday, I was walking to my brother's house. I live in Southwest Fresno. Walking to my brother's house to the barbecue. He lives around the corner from me, and we're walking with a young lady from the neighborhood, and there's a little dog following her. And she goes, this dog always follows me and bites me. Now, this was a puppy. It wasn't a vicious animal, but it totally highlights the problem that we have. Luckily we know where the dog belongs, so we was able to go to the dog owner and say, you need to bring your puppy in the house or what have you. But I want to wholeheartedly endorse what many folks came and talked about, the loose dog, the stray dog issue. It is a real and present issue. It impacts the quality of life in communities in certain parts of the city. And I did hear a great idea that we should take. The gentleman spoke about having at least a dog issue on Fresno. Bruce, I don't know if we can do that, but we should be able to. I think that it happens. It's enough of an issue where we should allow our community residents to be able to report through that app a loose or stray dog in our community. So I hope that we can. This is an actionable item that we heard today. So thank you for that suggestion, sir. It was well done. But I also, Bruce, would like to look into, I had some community residents come and talk to me about this recently, maybe before this agenda was finalized. And I don't think that they knew at the time that this was going to be on there, but I think they're probably pleased that it is. We do have an issue with animal control, particularly around the loose dog issue, and we should be talking to the SPCA, and sensitive or not, and I certainly take Councilmember Olivier's advice. I'm not bashing anyone for that matter, but we certainly need to look at a better way potentially to have animal control done, or at least a community response to animal control. There's at least a feeling that it's not as effective as it could be. So whether we need to work with them to have a better program, or whether we need to invest more just on the animal control side, I'm not sure what the answer is, but I know it's a very real and present issue. So I wanted to put that on the record, Bruce, and I'm going to be talking to you more about that, and probably bring some of our residents in so we can maybe potentially brainstorm about that. So thanks for my comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Soria?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, unlike my council colleague, Clint Olivier, I guess I want to be a little bit more optimistic, and I think that that's why we are having this conversation with the county, because there may be an opportunity where we can collaborate and maximize the resources we have. I want to thank the residents for being here, the ones that were able to come and share their frustrations. I get calls in my office all the time, complaints, and we ourselves, when we're calling SPCA, we can't even get through. We get put to voice message, and so the services are not acceptable. I think in the last budget, and I was responsible for that, we approved $3.6 million. That's a lot of money. And I believe that the residents deserve greater service. I know that this next budget appropriates I think a little bit over 100,000 in addition to the 3.6 million. So I do believe that we should be having a conversation about how we can improve the services, or at minimum start exploring ways to collaborate with the city to be able to maximize the resources that we already provide, because the stories are real. People's quality of life are being impacted. I echo the same concerns and comments made by my council colleague, Oliver Baines. I'd like to see a no-kill shelter as well. I know, as I mentioned, there's a lot of frustrated constituents. We get calls on a regular basis. There are too many loose dogs, not only in Southeast Fresno and Southwest, but even in District 1. Also, another issue that is highlighted constantly in my office, that if they call SPCA to pick up a wandering pet, means that the animal will be put down before it's found by the owner. The cost to retrieve the pet also is very costly. If we're talking about some of the low-income folks, to go find their pet, might as well probably get a new pet. And so these are real challenges that folks are dealing with. I also like the idea that was offered by one of the residents, looking at programs where we can provide affordable spay and neutering, because we know that if we do that, that's being proactive to the issue that many of these neighborhoods have in terms of the loose dogs. So I hope that these two bodies can continue to have a meaningful conversation about what can we do together to solve the issues of folks that live within our city boundary lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Butterfield?
Thank you. Yeah, I know this has also been an issue for me in my district. We've had people call us all the time. We've tried to contact SPCA. It's been difficult to do. I know we're giving them $3.6 million with really no oversight, as the council president said. Perhaps I could ask the Jean Rousseau just what you're doing in the county and how well. I mean, I was talking with the supervisor Magzig, and just wondering from an administrative point of view what you're doing and how, if any way, you see the city and the county collaborating, because I'm concerned that we all know there's a bit of a problem and there are things that need to be done to improve it, but I'd hope somehow we come away from here doing something about that.
Well, the county has, first of all, I've been back in this position for a year and a half, so I unfortunately missed what had happened prior to me coming back to Fresno. But the county, as has been spoken on the dais, is working with the Fresno Humane Animal Services to provide services to county unincorporated areas, and they're doing a fantastic job. We appreciate the effort that they put in working in very difficult conditions. So the county has been looking since I've been back and well before to find a permanent location for its shelter. We have been in discussions with a local donor, and that individual has gone off and is working with community partners to see if they can make it work and make it financially viable for the county. We are waiting for them to get back with us on that. But I do appreciate you asking me about this, because it was an opportunity for me to share our good relationship with our group, the Fresno Humane Animal Services. We certainly don't have the service level issues that the city has experienced with SPCA. But we are looking for a location, and if the city is doing the same thing, it's something certainly to talk about. Now, do we want to? We won't get into the vendor issue, because that group that we're working with is doing a great job. But if we can find a location and make the operations work, it's worth talking about.
Well, I'm just wondering, how long is Bruce, do you know how long the contract is with SPCA at this point?
Well, right now the contract with the SPCA is kind of an ongoing. It's based on appropriations by the City Council. And so, as Council President Olivier alluded to, the challenge is that the number of animals or the magnitude of the issue in the city is different than the challenges in the county. And so one of the issues with the previous provider or concerns with the previous provider is whether or not they would have the capacity to deal with the number of animals that would be envisioned under a joint city-county partnership. Nevertheless, in some preliminary discussions with Mr. Russo and his staff, we do think we have a viable alternative that we could pursue, and we can come back to the committee within the next 60 to 90 days, with at least from a logistics standpoint, a viable location that would not only meet the needs of the city, but also meet the needs of the county residents as well as the outlying cities. One of the other challenges is that none of the other cities really have much of any kind of animal control. And so we can come back with a facility. Again, the facility will be designed or would have to have the capacity to address both the urban as well as the rural needs. And then there's all sorts of other outlying variables that have to be considered: how long you're going to hold the animals. If it's a no-kill, then the amount of time that you're going to hold the animal and care for the animal is going to significantly increase the size of the facility, especially once you add the number of animals that the city is currently trying to deal with the SPCA. The city attorney has pointed out to me that this contract with the SPCA actually expires on June 30th of 2018. And so it seems like it's timely for us to collectively try to find some alternatives to this problem after all these years.
Okay, and so you, city manager and the chief administrative officer, already working to try to come up with some kind of, okay, that's fantastic. That's what I'm glad to hear that you're doing that, and we can seriously address this. And then I would just encourage people to take a look at adopting rescue dogs from the SPCA and the Animal Compassion Team and the other organizations. There are plenty of dogs that need homes. My wife and I just adopted one about 3 weeks ago, and we couldn't be happier with it. So thank you very much for the work you're doing.
Supervisor Borges.
I'll be brief. This is, I think, a very positive development. You heard from Mr. Cameron Moore from Fig Garden, and I've had other calls that there are key differences between the city perspective on animal control versus the county. Dave, tell me if I'm not mistaken, the city has about 2/3 of the volume compared to the county at 1/3. The city used to or still does go after cats, whereas the county does not. Is that correct?
You know, countywide, we have about 31,000 animals that are brought into the shelters every year. Each city and the county operate a shelter, so there's 31,000 animals that are processed. The majority, about I think it's about 60%, are coming from the city of Fresno,
Okay.
and then but so there's a lot of animals that are being dealt with.
So
In
clearly,
about 25% of the counties.
so it's clearly a dynamic where the larger portion of the volume is at the city. What about the cat issue? The county historically is not.
Well, cats are, I think, a different discussion. I think that there are some priorities that could be established with regard to animal control in terms of having ordinance codes align better, to have programs that would either strongly suggest or require spay and neutering of pets. We've got to take steps to reduce the number of animals that are being brought into and dropped off at shelters, or we'll never dig our way out of the situation that we're in today. We've made some good progress in terms of implementing some of those good practices, and our vendor, Fresno Humane Animal Services, is taking very proactive steps, both through the money that they're receiving from the county, but through a lot of volunteer hours as well, trying to make sure that animals are rehomed. A big issue we have is animals aren't reclaimed. So they have to find places to take these animals outside of our community. We need to change that attitude in Fresno County and in the cities. So there's a lot of steps that can be taken. Cats are different. We do not have an ordinance code that specifically addresses the uptake of cats unless they're injured. If there's an injured animal found in the community, our vendor is required to pick up those animals and bring them in. But feral cats are a big portion of that 31,000 animals that are brought in every year. I think that there are many strategies that we can take to try to reduce the population of cats that we should be working on, not just bringing them in for disposal being the only solution.
Thanks, Dave. Well, I'll end with this, Mayor Brand. I was here just like you and a number of my former colleagues when Councilman Olivier had the discussions with folks here and also at the county. While that didn't pan out, I just wanted to lend my support that I think we should devise a way, if possible, to pursue a consolidated program. Of course, it would have to be financially feasible, practical in every respect, but I think it's overdue, and it's time we revisited this. In fact, the last, I'm going to mention you twice, Clint. The last time I got bit by a stray dog was campaigning for you, door to door. So it is a problem out there.
Supervisor Pacheco.
Mayor, I would just add that while it can always be improved, since Councilman Olivier first brought this to a head several years ago and the county had to go on its own, the county's had definitely a learning curve, but the group of people, Brenda Mitchell and her team, that are doing it for the county is just simply phenomenal. They're in a poor, outdated facility. We need to get that addressed. We do have a private person that's come forward that wants to improve that. However, the issue is when you deal with government, you have to pay the prevailing wage, and that's been an issue for us, so I don't know where that's going to go. But simply, the job that our group is doing in the conditions they're in is just simply outstanding. And so any discussion that we will have, I can assure you from the county point of view, is they will be brought in to the discussion because we wouldn't want to lose anything of what we have out on the county side because they are doing such a good job, and they've dramatically reduced our euthanation rates, and it's almost down to nothing. So while that is a very hard attainable goal, the group out there is nearly achieving that goal. So as we move forward, we just need to keep that in mind, that that group will be brought into the discussion.
Thank you. The screen is clear. I'll make a few final comments. I think it's in the best interest of the county and the city to find a facility, and every city has a mandate by law on animal control. There's probably cities of Selma, Kerman, Kalinga that are around that area would probably be able to participate. And I would say that the cost should be allocated based on the actual usage. So whether we're 2/3 or 3/4, Fresno would be the main burden on the financial side. But I think it could be worked out where both sides would be a benefit financially. The dogs, the kill rate would be substantially reduced and more humane. It would take care of a lot of these issues that people are bringing up about feral dogs or stray dogs biting them. I was chased down by 3 chihuahuas during my campaign last year and survived that. But the key here, again, I'm going to go to staff, is we have to have the staff get together to go beyond the ideas and the discussion to actually, if the site we have at the sewer treatment plant is acceptable to the county and we can be done in a cost-effective way that both entities will benefit from it, I'd like to see us go to the next step. And we're going to have more meetings, monthly meetings with our group anyway. But this is something we need to stay on top of. I think the stakes are high for both the city and the county. And I think this is one of the byproducts of having a good relationship with the county and meeting on a regular basis to actually solve these issues that have been around for a number of years that are finally going to get some resolution. And going back to the first item we talked about, public safety and efficiency. So that will end our formal items of discussion today. And I'll ask anybody from the public who wants to do a final open session, you're allowed to speak up to 3 minutes. 2 minutes, okay. Well, it looks like nobody wants to volunteer. Thank you. So with that, I will close this historic meeting between the Fresno County Board of Supervisors and the Fresno City Council. Hope from Chair Pacheco and Council President Olivier we have at least one more public joint meeting. And I want to thank everybody for showing up today. Thank you.